and there is no evidence to suggest that the Apollo 15 astronauts stayed on the ground. If anything, the record indicates that they were clearly in a weightless environment on their trip to the moon. Take this footage of the crew checking out the lunar module, and shards of glass from a broken range and range rate tape meter floating in the lunar module cabin, for example. And don't forget Al Warden's 38-minute spacewalk to retrieve the film cassettes from the instrument bay cameras. Why on earth would Jarrah think that the Apollo 15 crew stayed on the ground?
Because a pilot called up Bill Casing and said he saw the Apollo 15 capsule dumped out the back of a C-5A when it was time to, quote, return to the Earth. As far as those in-flight television transmissions go, I've seen them all. The broadcasts in question show no evidence that the crews are in space. All it shows is a couple of guys standing around in the LEM cockpit with their backs to the camera for the majority of the video. The only hints of zero gravity all seem to last only 30 seconds or less. It's true. I'll time them for you.
This is Houston. We're getting a reasonably good TV signal from you, and we have Endeavour. We're not reading Falcon at the present time, and we've had loss of signal.
Houston, Endeavour, roger, understand, and I wonder if you just got that last piece on the TV there. It was a piece of gray tape with some glass on it that came out of the tape meter.
We're getting a very good picture of it, thank you.
Roger.
Houston, this is Falcon. How do you read?
Falcon, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear. How else?
Just give you a report from Endeavour.
Falcon, that all sounds good, and only one other matter, and that's the docking index angle as you go back through.
All right, we checked that. It was plus 0.1.
We copy.
Given that all these examples fall within the 30-second time frame, all that would be needed to fake this is to load the astronauts into a LEM CSM mock-up aboard the KC-135, which was specifically used for simulating weightlessness, and then have the astronauts strut their stuff during these time windows. And the spacewalk video was probably done by suspending Warden over a mock-up of the CSM via cables. During the production of this video, Webb released a video responding to the C-5A cargo plane. I suspected Webb would just dismiss this as a bare assertion fallacy, as he usually does. Instead, he makes a couple of false claims. I'm not even going to bother playing the video, because he sums up both these claims in his video comments. Firstly, Webb claims, the FAA always cleared both the launch and recovery sites of commercial and private aircraft to avoid accidents. No commercial aircraft could have come near the Apollo 15 splashdown site. And yet, Captain Frank A. Brown's commercial airline from Brisbane to Honolulu was allowed to get close enough to the site to allow his passengers to see the Apollo 11 capsule re-enter the atmosphere. This is documented in the July 25, 1969 printing of the West Australian. Passengers on a Qantas flight from Brisbane early today had a bird's-eye view of the Apollo 11's re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. If commercial airliners were allowed to fly in Apollo 11's landing airspace, why would they not be allowed on Apollo 15? Webb then states, besides that, as Jarrah should know, a commercial jet corridor from San Francisco to Tokyo is near Alaska, while Apollo 15's splashdown site is near Hawaii. A jet flying that corridor would not be closer than 1,550 miles from the recovery site. A route from Frisco to Tokyo is close to Alaska, but the return trip is much closer to Hawaii. Passengers on this route would certainly be in a position to see the airdrop. Maybe the pilot was referring to his return trip from Tokyo back to San Francisco. Maybe Casing misspoke on radio when he said from San Francisco to Tokyo and meant vice versa. It's possible because in his book he mentions that the pilot told him that 7 Japanese passengers aboard saw this capsule drop from the air. Tourists on a trip to Frisco, perhaps? For those of you who are still puzzled by Webb's ridiculous attempt to muddy the waters, allow me to clarify once and for all. I can't speak for the other Apollo missions, but I can say this. In the case of Apollos 10 and 11, the astronauts were launched with the Saturn V and remained in Earth orbit for that duration. All of their signals were relayed to an unmanned craft to make it look like the signals were coming from the Moon. This would be necessary to dupe the amateur radio operators and other independent parties who, Webb admits, can only attest to having received signals when the crews were supposedly on or near the Moon. In fact, Webb has offered absolutely no evidence that a relay probe was not used. The best he can come up with is to point out that 60 GHz signals would not be necessary, as 2300 MHz signals would work just the same, and whinge that because NASA didn't use his preferred method of fakery, they therefore didn't fake it. At best, that is pitiful circular reasoning and a bare assertion fallacy all rolled into one. As for Apollo 15, because the crew stayed on the ground the whole time, all the communications and flight data and so forth came from pre-recorded tapes that the NASA Manned Spaceflight Network relayed over the landlines to Houston. And for the hams, an unmanned craft was in cislunar space to transmit identical information. It should be pointed out that in either case, whether they were on the Earth or in Earth orbit, the only individuals who can attest to having, quote, tracked these vehicles all the way to the Moon and back is NASA and their associates directly working with them. And again, whether the astronauts were on the Earth or in Earth orbit for the duration, Houston MCC controllers need not know. The technicians simply read what's on their computer screens and would not need to know or care where the data came from. So all the NASA Manned Spaceflight Network would need do is relay information over the landlines, regardless of whether it was live or pre-filmed, and then say it came from the Moon. No one at Houston would be the wiser. What is there not to understand about this?